Caravan of Knowledge – проект по развитию STEM-образования в Казахстане. В рамках Caravan of Knowledge 1 проведена образовательная программа по STEM для учителей, учеников и студентов. В рамках Caravan of Knowledge 2 совместно с Министерством образования и науки Республики Казахстан разрабатывается дорожная карта внедрения STEM. Мы реализуем множество направлений. Жанна Талаб – это программа по подготовке и сертификации STEM-тренеров Казахстана для развития культуры STEM в стране. Таным – это педагогические сборные, которые снимают видеоуроки по STEM для параллелей 7-11 классов. STEM Research – это исследовательское направление проекта, включающее аналитику, обзоры и срезы по разным аспектам STEM. STEM Сару Арлары. Мы приглашаем экспертов стать амбассадорами Caravan of Knowledge и внести свой вклад в развитие STEM. Благодарим за сотрудничество партнеров проекта. Через сотрудничество к качеству. Ваш Caravan of Knowledge.
Добрый вечер, уважаемые участники. Мы рады вас приветствовать на очередном цикле вебинаров «Система, координат». Для начала хотелось бы напомнить, что вы можете задавать свои вопросы в чат, активно писать. Будут выбираться самые интересные вопросы, и наши спикеры будут отвечать по возможности. Также хотелось бы напомнить, что в конце нашей лекции в чат будет отправлена форма обратной связи, которую нужно будет заполнить каждому. Так мы можем в конце определить качество нашей сегодняшней лекции, а также мы, конечно, сможем понять, кто же от начала до конца просидел на нашей сегодняшней интересной лекции. А лекция у нас сегодня называется «Педагогические сообщества. Фестиваль Science on Stage. Образование в Швеции». У нас сегодня замечательный спикер, замечательный модератор. Хотелось бы поприветствовать их и передать слово нашему модератору, а точнее основателю и руководителю компании Educational Solutions Утеулину Ерлану Ержановичу. Ерлан Ержанович, хош келдіңіз. Предоставляем слово вам.
Спасибо, Айгерим. Я буду говорить на английском сразу, чтобы начать. Hello everyone. You are welcome for today's discussion about the values of teachers and our systems of coordinate series of speakers. Today our guest is Anders Blomqvist. Hello Anders, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Perfect. Yeah, I'm also very well, thank you. So yeah, how is the weather in Sweden?
Today we had a very cold day, it's sunny, and we can feel that the winter is coming, so it's very nice.
Excellent.
And it's still 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, perfect. So you have the bunch of time till the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, it's very late in Kazakhstan. It's 7 in the evening. So I would like to thank all of you for joining our discussion today. So first of all, let's start straightly to the questions. Can you introduce yourself a little bit more, Anders, and talk about your background and what you do?
Absolutely. Well, to start with, I was born in a small town called Sandviken in the middle of Sweden. And when I was at secondary school, I was studying natural sciences. And that inspired me to move on to the university and study biology and chemistry. And I stayed there for another 5 years, work on a PhD, which I finished in 1994. And that was within the field of medical sciences. This also led me to do a postdoctoral stay. So I was staying 1 year in Denmark and 2 years in Australia doing a postdoc. And after that, I was ready to move on. And I went actually to the pharmaceutical industry in Stockholm, where I was working on infectious diseases, viruses. But after some time, I was longing back to the academia again. So this time I moved on to the Royal Institute of Technology, where I'm staying right now. And part of my work here is also doing outreach activities, which also is the reason why I'm a member of the board of Science on Stage EU, but also responsible for the activities of Science on Stage in Sweden. So that's a short summary.
Good. So excellent. So you worked a lot in the academia. You have PhD degree as well, and you worked in the industry. Can you tell us a little bit more about Sweden's education system? So from your own personal experience, and more specifically, the role of teachers in that education system.
Yeah, well, first, some general background about the system is that we have a preschool that you can attend until you're 6 years old. Then we have the primary school, where you start when you're 7 years old. Then after 9 years, you can attend the secondary school, which is a sort of either you will move on and get a profession, but you can also be prepared for the universities. So after that, you have university studies, which are just in line with the rest of the Europe. It's the same system according to the Bologna process. And the education in Sweden, both at the primary, secondary, and the universities, they are all free. They're no charge, so everyone can attend. The schools can either be private or public, and it's very important to know also that regardless if you're a private or a public school, you're not allowed to discriminate, so they can't require any sort of admission examinations nor any fees. So anyone should be able to attend any kind of school they would like to join.
Even private schools?
Even private schools, yes.
So
then,
even private schools, they cannot charge any fees and admission processes, or
no,
how does it work?
All they can do is that they can ask for donations.
Ah, okay.
But they can't ask the parents of the student to pay a fee. They cannot.
Mm.
So if you really would like to join a school, and you should just have a good diploma from your previous school, and then you will be able to join that school, because they're ranked differently. Some schools are more popular, and you need to have a better diploma to attend that one, of course. So it's a sort of a competition among students, but it shouldn't be due to lack of finances that you can't join that school. But if you're good enough, you can join that school. And of course, some schools are more popular than others.
Yeah, talking about the term of good enough. Yeah, I heard about the term which is called lagom in Swedish, which literally like translates as good enough. So I totally understand how this term is applied, for example, in professional spheres, like in everyday life in Sweden, so that you are being modest and you are not showing off what you have, like in terms of finances or like properties or assets.
Yeah.
And the best example is, of course, the founder of IKEA, and how he lived very modest life and being multi-billionaire, you know?
Yeah.
And how does this term apply to education? I mean, when you are in a classroom and you want to be as maximum inclusive as you can, right? And you want to provide all students with materials, and for example, in math, like with problems that they are good at. And if you are like in a culture where you are not supposed to show off or like show that you know more, like how does this work?
Well, the thing is that the teachers are more like a catalyst. They should really try to bring up the best of the students. And if you're very good on maths, for example, you can always give that individual some extra tasks, or you can also help that person to be assist the teacher actually to help the bodies to extend the math problems, so they can be good on explaining maths for others. So, but we're looking more into that now in Sweden, that we try to also identify those that are very highly skilled, so they can also get their needs met, so they feel satisfied. Because the problem is that if you're very clever, if you're very talented in certain areas, you can also get easily bored at school. So you have to also try to keep the motivation up on a high level. So that means also that some certain schools, actually, especially within math, are highly specialized and also offer university studies for those that are at secondary school, so they can also sort of get a glimpse of what's waiting ahead of them.
Is that somehow like regulated in your like school laws or something, when like children can like do some university level degrees at the school?
It's not regulated. That's sort of like one of the benefits one certain school would like to have, that they can apply for that. Instead, you have to look at what's the minimum that is required to get a certain diploma. So that's set up by the government ultimately, and those are just very specified that if you finish the first grade in primary school, there's a certain level of knowledge you should know. Then the same for the third and the fourth, fifth, and sixth year. So it's more like a spiral. So every time you just move on among this ladder, you should learn new things along the ladder. And what I think is very important is that once you finish the primary school, you should have skills enough that you can choose whatever you want, because some of those students don't pass and they can't apply for anything at the secondary school because they are dropped out too early. And that will be a problem in the long run.
I see.
So that's where this sort of IKEA thing you were saying, that's very modest, but we try to bring everyone along everyone should be on the train forward. And everyone should have a chance to do better later on.
Great. So can you give like one maybe like very simple example about teaching being a catalyst, as you said?
Yeah. Well, I think it's quite clear that if you have one student that is start to understand things, they have a certain knowledge, there will be some understanding. And by understanding, you can also see some possibilities coming as a student. And I think when you see the possibilities, there's a hope for the future for this individual. And as a catalyst, you should sometimes take the lead in the classroom. As a teacher, of course, you have to just explain the theoretical background and so on. But once you're in a lab, I think it's very good if you sometimes can just take a step backwards and see what's happening in the lab. You can see that some students are definitely doing it totally wrong. And this is actually one of my favorite things. You should be allowed to do things wrong in the lab.
When students are wrong, so you like it?
I like it because if you fail, and if you think about yourself, it's when you do things wrong, you learn a lot from it as well.
Sure.
So then you can discuss, okay, this didn't work out very well. So how can we do it better? You use this sort of open questions. You have a discussion with the students. And then they start to identify the problems and see what the pitfalls are. Then you can say that, okay, there's a time we can do it again. Then when they do it for the second time, they do it right and they learn something very well. It's in their hands suddenly. And that's what a good catalyst can be.
Yeah, this concept of like failing in the classroom really resonates with me as well, because when you do things right, you don't like much learn from it, because it could be luck, or it could be because of like someone helped you or something. But when you fail, your mind is becoming more sharp, and you see the things that maybe you wouldn't see if you did it right, you know? And yeah, I think this is very, very, very important thing in the learning process. So
may I please add one thing?
Sure, of course.
Because if you sort of prepare the students for failure, it sounds a bit funny when you say it, but if you think about it, what's waiting later on when they start to work as a scientist or just to do whatever you want, they will eventually fail at some time.
Of course.
If they're not prepared for it, they don't know how to handle it. So I think that's also preparation for life.
Yeah, I listened to one podcast where one woman was talking about her experience about the failure, and her father was teaching her from her childhood about the failures. And like she said, like every day when I came back from the school, my father asked me, what in what I failed today. Like every day he was keep asking me about my failures, and it became as you know, as a success. So like the failure is treated as a success in her. Like her father created this mindset that failure is something is good, and which is not bad. I mean, yeah. So
I agree.
yeah.
I agree fully.
Great, yeah. And yeah, coming back to our discussion about the teachers and etc. So you mentioned that you are as an executive board member of Science on Stage organization. I am so I know what the organization is and etc. But can you give me more information, and can you introduce this organization to our listeners?
Absolutely.
So tell us about like how it was organized, what's its goals and values.
Yeah, well, it all started in 1999, and by that time it was called Physics on Stage. And it was CERN, it was ESA, and it was ESO outreach activities. So it was focused on physics and astronomy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was experiments on stage. It was more like a show. But after a few years, they understood that they should introduce other topics as well. So it was more like a STEM-oriented festival. So it was called Science on Stage in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
I joined Science on Stage in 2011. And during that same year, we also established a European organization with a headquarters in Berlin. And we have a member states, Sweden, Kazakhstan, and many others.
Mm-hmm.
And the aim of Science on Stage is simply that this is something for the teachers, and those that will provide the material for the teachers are also other teachers in other countries. So it's for teachers by teachers. So it's a network. And what the organization Science on Stage wants to do is that we want to be the platform, the arena for these teachers. So on the website, you have videos, you have webinars, PDF booklets that you can download for free, no charge. And what many people have heard about is the festival that happens every second year. This spring, it will be in Prague. And then that will be a big festival with more than 400 participants. And there will be delegations from each country joining, with teachers sharing ideas, showing their experiments. And the aim is that you should establish contacts with everyone. And perhaps you will find a fellow from Kazakhstan and you speak the same language, you have the same interest in what to teach. And then you can, via Science on Stage, set up a collaboration, either with the classes or between the teachers. So I think it's a great thing. It's all about sharing and being open-minded as a teacher.
Yeah, like sharing is caring, right?
Yeah, sharing is caring. I agree.
Yeah. When in 2017 I found this organization and Kazakhstan wasn't part of it, I was like, what? Why we're not part of that great organization? Because I saw the videos, I read the materials, and it just blew my mind, you know, like how teachers interact with each other, especially in science. And then I have participated in Debrecen in Science on Stage Festival in 2017. And when I saw all those teachers with the fire in their eyes, with all their enthusiasm, I thought that we need to be a part of it, and we need to bring our teachers so they can show, so they can see, they can collaborate, they can make new network of fellow colleagues from different countries. So yeah, it was like very cool, you know. And so how do you think, what brings this organization together, and why is it still operating? I mean, it's been operating for more than 20 years already, and it looks like teachers and participants and the National Steering Committee leaders, they find some kind of value in this organization. and in your experience and in your point of view, what this value is?
Well, I had to think about that one for a while, and I think the common key is that those people attending Science on Stage are people that are interested in meeting other people. They're open-minded. They are, as you said, enthusiastic about what they're doing. I find the teachers they are very curious about things, and also they have the nerve to take on and try out new things. And when you talk to these teachers, when they're showing a project on the table, those are also the teachers that have failed with the projects. They tried it over and over again, and finally it works, and they will want to show it and share it with others at the festival. And I think this sort of interest in meeting new people, I think that's the common key for the success. But also the value of that, you know that when you attend the festival, you will actually speak to someone that actually knows how it works, because they tried it in the classroom already. And it's not like you just get a paper from a journal and see how you can do things. It's not a recipe. This is like the whole package, how to do it in front of your class. And I think that's a big success too as well. So I find that teachers attending Science Stage, they are very enthusiastic, curious people with a great curiosity about learning new things. And if you like that environment, that's the place for you as well.
Of course. I will be there in Prague next year. So yeah, I'm also into it, and yeah, I'm like evangelizing this organization everywhere I can. So
excellent.
yeah. Like going to our next question is that so you've been in this organization for about 10 years.
That's right.
And it looks like you have participated at least in 5 of the like international European festivals. So which brings me to the like I did a little bit calculation. So it makes you saw like around 2,000 different teachers from more than 30 countries. So and what do you think? What is the value pattern among those teachers? So what connects all those 2,000 teachers that were participating in those festivals?
I think the answer is that they have a certain grit for what they're doing. When I think about different projects and different teachers I met, the personalities varies. Some are very outspoken, extroverts, some are more introverts. But when you ask them to show their project, they're all so dedicated to show what they're doing. And they have a passion for what they're doing. I think that's the common theme for all of them. It's a passion for their work.
So yeah, passion. So passion, dedication, open-mindedness. And can you give us maybe a little bit of like best case examples of like Swedish people when like they were maybe at first time a little bit not sure about like participating in the organization, and when they were into this process and how they evolved or like how they evolutionized during this process in participating?
Thanks for bringing that one up, because that one is that's interesting. I don't know how it's in your country, but in Sweden, all the teachers are very modest about what they're doing.
Exactly.
So I asked him, like, please tell me, I mean, you just have to apply. You can just write down a short summary of what you're doing. Oh, no, I don't have a good project. And no, I'm not doing anything special. And he said, oh my, but come on, I think you're doing something good about astronomy. Just write it down. Then when you see it, I mean, it's really good projects. And then you have to convince them that you have to prepare your table for the festival, and you have to be aware that there will be people passing by. And after the festival and during the festival, they start to see that, well, people are actually interested in my stuff. And I got some new contacts, and they start to feel very motivated. So first of all, they start to appreciate the work they're doing. They can see that, and all the teachers out there are doing good work. They're just very modest about it. That's what I think. Exactly. And perhaps it's this sort of lagom effect in Sweden. I don't know. Not sticking out too much. But I can see during the festival itself, they can actually getting so motivated, and that's what I really would like to see, is that they get a lot of motivation. When they go back, they will share their enthusiasm with their colleagues, but especially to their own pupils. So the pupils can feel that, okay, something happened here. My teachers came back and she's very motivated, and now I can feel that this is great fun again. Because if you have a great joy in your work and you can just share this passion for the biology, chemistry, whatever it is, it will be very contagious. Also, the pupils will pick it up as well. So that's very important. And I can see that happen very, very often.
Yeah, it was very interesting because in our country, when we first did our festival in 2018, we called on applications from all over the country. We received a lot of applications, and we have selected 24 or 25 of them for the national round. And all of the teachers that came from different parts of our country, they, as you said, I mean, they were very dedicated into the work that they were into. So they really loved their subject, and they were really eager to show their projects. So they liked it very much, and they wanted to share it, obviously. So yeah, it's very important, I think. Yeah.
Also, one effect that I hope is that if you see some teachers going for the festival, some of the colleagues will think that, well, maybe I should do something as well about my teaching, because I'm teaching about electrochemistry every year, and I find it so boring. Can I do it in a better way? And if so, how can I do it? And suddenly you can get some inspiration, even without attending the festival. You can sort of getting inspired to just improve things. And that's what I usually do when I do teaching. I can feel after a while that I have the same lecture year after year, and I feel all of a sudden I feel very bored, and I just have to do something about it to improve it, because I want to see a result among the students, that they really like it or not. So I think that's also one of the side effects.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the side effects is this, messages of thankfulness, when people writing right now that one of the teachers who made it to Prague from our country, he is now here, and he's telling that he will be there, and he's preparing for being in Prague, yeah, and I want to remind all the listeners and participants that we can take your questions on the time, while we are discussing, and I will ask all interesting questions to Anders, whenever we receive them. So yeah, just don't be shy, don't be lagom, just ask questions.
Yeah, don't be shy. And I also would like to just add that I really look forward to meet the Kazakhstan delegation in Prague.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, going forward, so we have discussed and the reason why I am bringing up the science on stage a lot right now in our conversation is that I see a very important value on what science on stage is doing worldwide, its values, and through its activities as well. So but I'm the National Steering Committee chief, and I'm mostly as a participant, but you are as an executive board member, and from your personal point of view, what's the role of science on stage in the creation of those values among teachers?
Well,
so yes, sorry, like, yeah, we have mentioned, like, and we have identified like several values that Science on Stage is really into it, and they are promoting them, like open-mindedness, enthusiasm, like curiosity, and like what's their role in generating those values, what they really do.
Well, I think I'll say it this way, that being a part of the board, we are thinking ahead and we try to see what's happening in the member countries. We try to identify what are the needs for the moment. And when you arrange a festival, that's very evident what you can say that are what sort of priorities you have. And as an organizer of a festival, it's the organizer in that particular town that have the right to set up one of the sort of theme categories. So, for example, in last time in Qashqai, it was astronomy was one of the major topics for obvious reasons, because the organizer was involved in astronomy. Besides that, we try to identify other topics that we feel that these sort of categories need a lot of attention, and it's sort of many member countries. So, for example, for the moment, there's a very hot topic: how to make education more inclusive. How do we involve people with different ethnic minorities? How do we involve gender issue in, for example, technology and computer sciences? How do we think about socioeconomics, and how can we do it better in that way? And we try to find good examples from various countries. How do you do it in your country? And it's even though it's sort of different systems, it's a lot of different cultural differences. We can also see a lot of resemblances between the countries, because you see, what I find is so fascinating is that when you talk to a teacher from a foreign country, you can see that the priorities and the struggles in the schools, they're all the same. So we have a common ground, and I think Science Stage should be a common ground for all the teachers that really want to do a better work. And the only way to do that is to facilitate contacts between the teachers directly. So I think that's also a great motivation for the teacher in their daily life, that they can actually feel that, well, today I can Zoom up my colleague in, for example, Spain, and have a discussion about what to do on this project. And I think that's something that sort of helps you move outside the schools, the walls of the school.
So it's beyond just the festival, right?
Yeah.
So what I really like about the organization is not the festival itself, because the festival is just like, you can imagine as a party where like all teachers gather together, they share ideas, they have fun, and all of them then go to their own countries. And what Science on Stage does in terms of creating those values of curiosity and networking and enthusiasm and sharing of these ideas is that they give the ground, and they give possibility to interact with different colleagues from different countries and
Exactly.
bringing their experience to your country.
Exactly. That's what I usually say, is that the festival itself is just the first step, because afterwards you won't see like wings on the water. You have one participant coming home from Prague, coming to their schools, and they perhaps feel inspired, so they will invite someone to give a teacher training. You can do it in various ways. You can just set up your own examples of what you picked up from the festival, and you just share the good ideas in your hometown. But you may also be able to establish a contact with a foreign school, with a foreign teacher, and you can establish a joint project. And if you do that, you can also apply for the next festival and come back and show your joint project that you have. So I think it's a matter of personal chemistry. You just find a person that you really like. You have a share the same interest. So, for example, if you love chemistry and this type of molecules, this is a common language. You have something in common, and you can do a lot of wonderful stuff together with that.
Of course, like H2O is like the same on any language, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. Cool. So before going to the final part of our conversation, we have received a question from Ayman, and she's asking, you can see it in the discussions as well. So the question basically says that do you have any examples of like any specific activities in Sweden where like a lot of number of parents were involved in the school activities?
Actually, my youngest son was in a private school, which was a school that was, they had at least one day a week that they were just outdoors. So they did the math, they did the physics and everything in the forest.
Well, forest.
Yeah, so it was then that was from grades 1 to 6. And in that school also the parents had to participate. So we also made some carpentry work. We did some tools for them as well. So it was more like we contributed by the skills we had for that particular school and made it happen. So that's a way to just contribute. And that's quite typical. Also, one activity where the parents are involved is also that when you're in 9th grade and finish up the primary school, usually all the students are going for a holiday or a trip somewhere, and that's also sort of a co-work that you do together with the parents. You set up goals, economic goals, and how to achieve them and how to reach them. And that's usually work carried out by the parents and not by the teachers. So the pupils will sort of be inspired in that way to see what their parents are able to do.
Yeah, interesting. And yeah, so some parents are good in like building, and some parents are good in like doing measurements, or how does it work?
Yeah, or computers, IT, whatever, they can just contribute in different things. So in that way, as a chemist, it's very hard to contribute sometimes, but you can do some carpentry work or gardening, whatever. So that's good.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, we have talked a lot about the science on stage and about its values and etc. And now I want to proceed to like to the results maybe of those value creations. So like Science on Stage does and invests a lot of time and efforts and resources into building those values, into building those networks, like so that teachers can communicate, they go to their countries, they teach other teachers, they share their experience and etc. But how do you think in your, and you can give like several examples from Swedish teachers as well, how those values of curiosity and open-mindedness is transferred from teachers to children, and how do they see this transformation in children, or like does it happen at all?
Well, as I said, I think they can instantly see it when this teacher is coming back, because if you attend a festival, you will get inspired and you will get motivated. You will be, even though it's very exhausting to be at a festival, it's like a lot of activities going on at the same time. You're also getting very motivated. The key is that in some cases, of course, the teacher will just fall back and it will be like you go to work, you do your work, you go home, and that's it. So I think that's a role for the NSC, the National Steering Committee as well, to keep in touch with the teachers and also keep them motivated afterwards, saying like, now you can apply for the joint projects. Have you think about contacts? Have you seen this webinar that you can attend? And just to be a host even afterwards for the teachers, because it's quite easy that you're just sucked up by work and you just have to go back and have your normal routines. And I think you have to sort of remind them once in a while that don't forget about Science on Stage and don't forget about all the fun we had and all the possibilities that you were actually offered. And I know that there are a lot of teachers that would love to do things with other countries and establish things, and I think we can facilitate as an organization for them that, for example, if they want a contact with Kazakhstan, I can always contact you and say that I know someone there and we can see how it works and we can just sort it out. But we need to be the catalyst in this case as a Science on Stage National Steering Committee.
I see. And do you have any like examples in mind, just if you have, I mean, or you can think of any examples while I'll be like telling you some experiences that I have from and the feedbacks that I received from our teachers after participating in the festival in 2019. So the most common feedback that I have received from teachers who participated in Cascais in Portugal, it was like how all those teachers like stay always motivated. So like you are there for like 3 or 4 days, and 4 days from the morning till the evenings, like all teachers, they are always eager to share. They're always smiling and they are very supportive. So this is kind of experience that our teachers had, and it changed the mindset, like perception of the teaching, and how do you share everything you have.
Yeah,
I mean,
I also think it's sort of a selection, because if you apply for Science on Stage, you also understand the format that you're supposed to go there and you're supposed to share. And as you said, sharing is caring.
Yeah.
And you can't be greedy and just hold on to your data and so on. This is more like you want to share. And I think all those people that are attending, they are also willing to give some credibility to that one that is actually sharing it as well. So I think it's a mindset, and it's also a responsibility among the Science on Stage national steering committees that actually sort of convey this sort of atmosphere and this attitude to the delegates also, that you go there with an open mind, with enthusiasm, and eager to know more people out there sharing the same interests as you are. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, interesting. So Miss Ayman asked the second question. So she's asking about leadership system in Swedish schools and how do they work.
Well, that's a tough. Well, it's different.
So I want to a little bit elaborate on this question. So I would ask more like not about like the system itself, but what is their role in support of teachers in terms of hierarchy and being a leadership at school. So I think this is like more appropriate question to our today's topic.
Well, basically you have 4 levels at the school. You have the principal, of course, the head of the school. You have the what do we call the first teacher, and below you have the common teacher, and then below the teachers you have supporting staff that will be responsible for the breaks and also take care of pupils that need special attention, for example. But the first teacher is also sort of more like a head of a group of teachers. So that's like 4
heads,
levels. Right? Yeah. So that's more or less 4 levels.
Nice. I think it's more or less the same as in our country as well. The only difference is between the head of departments and the head teacher, we have also vice heads, like vice principals, which are like responsible for different areas of the school. Like, for example, like the academics part, the maintenance and building management stuff, and all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so what's their role in supporting those teachers in terms of bringing like, and maybe I should put the question in a bit different light. So how leadership in Sweden are developing those values that we were discussing, like enthusiasm, like passion, open-minded. How do they develop those kind of values in their teachers in Sweden?
I would say in some cases it works very well. Unfortunately, it's on an individual level. It all depends on the teacher. Some teachers are sort of, depending on the class and the quality, they are sort of just stuck to the curriculum and just try to struggle it through. That means also that there won't be sort of space for extra things. You just do what you have to do. In some other schools, you may have a team of teachers that are really like a good team that can help each other. They can apply for different things and make it happen. And unfortunately, it's sort of not the same all over the schools. It's though you actually have differences. So I would say I can see what's happening here, because I have more than 50,000 students coming to my place every year, doing STEM activities. And I can certainly see that some classes have all the possibilities to get this sort of passion for the topic, and they have the grit in their eyes from the beginning, whereas some classes are struggling with a lot of difficulties. And for those poor students, it's very hard to sort of just get focus on what's happening during that particular day. So there are differences, and not all the schools are the same, unfortunately.
I see. Yeah, very interesting.
And I think when I'm attending Science on Stage, you can see that that's happening in every country as well, that schools are different.
Yeah, schools are different, cultures are different, as you said, like previously, right? So the context is different, but the challenges and like, yeah, and the values, they are common and they're more fundamental. Right?
Yeah. And I think we should focus on what we actually have more in common. And there are a lot of things we have more in common. And I think that's what you can see what's happening on Science on Stage as well, that they start to talk to each other, all the delegates. They can see that all of a sudden they're just involved in deep discussion about something that you never heard about before, but they're really into it as well. So it's fantastic to see.
Of course. And yeah, so we are into our last like around 10 minutes of our discussion. So dear participants, if you have any questions, you are like, you can ask them right now. And my last question would be, this is like surprise question. So yeah, yeah, is like, of course, based on your personal experience and in your personal view, what's the image of the perfect teacher in value-wise, not skill-wise? So skills can differ. So like, but in terms of value-wise, what's the perfect teacher, image of the perfect teacher?
It's I like that question because I've been discussing it quite often, and when I think about teachers I had that inspired me, as you said, it wasn't the one that has perhaps the most skills or knowledge, but they actually could see me as a student, and they took the time to explain things to me. So even though there were 20 other students in the room, I felt that this teacher spent the time solely for me to explain things, and carefully, and being patient. So that was very inspiring for me. But I think you have to recognize all the students in your classroom, and I do the same when I'm visiting else. Even though if I just visit them once in my life, I say hi to the teacher, but I also say hi to all the students coming through the door and enter the building, so they will actually be seen by me. And also, there are no stupid questions. All I can give them is just a stupid answer. I don't want to do that. I just try to give them the best answer I can. So even though if I can feel that sometimes the question is a bit out of the blue, I try to bring it down and analyze it and give them an answer so they can feel that, so they feel motivated to answer even more. I think a teacher shouldn't make the students insecure. They should be feel free to ask a lot of questions, because if you ask questions, you can have a good discussion. And as a teacher, you can also be that particular catalyst. So if you can feel that, once again, discussion is a bit out of the blue, can you sort of bring them back on track again and end up with something good in the finally? And I like those sort of teachers. But then, of course, if you're at the university level or secondary school, you tend to be more sort of focused on the knowledge. When you meet younger students, you have to be more inspiring character, someone that is sort of lit up this certain grit among them and make science fantastic. But the older they are, the more serious you will become as well. So the difference is how to behave and how a good teacher should be.
Interesting. So so what you mentioned is the passions. So teachers should have passions, like for everything, right?
Yeah.
While like students asking the questions, like whether they are like related or unrelated to the topics and etc. And about inspiration and about teachers being like focusing more to inspire younger children, I have a bit like clash in me about this, and I wanted to know your opinion as well. So to me, like from my experience, I know that students from their early childhood, they don't need inspiration because they are born with this curiosity to knowledge, and the only thing that teachers should do in that period is not to stand on their way, but just to give them resources and the environment so they can be curious and know things. Whereas like teachers should be more inspiring, maybe like on the later stages of the students. That's what I witnessed, like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting topic you're touching now, because when you think about creativity, as you say, young children are very creative.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel that school is sort of totally eliminate this sort of creativity. And how to keep it even later on in their life, that's very important. And I think, of course, you have to make risk assessments when you do chemistry. You have to think what
Yeah,
will
of
happen.
course. Yeah.
But in a way, you also want them to just try it out and see what happens. And I think open questions, why, how, and so on, are very important when you do teaching. If they say, like, if they ask me about, is this right? And I said, like, I don't know, you try it out and we'll see what happens. And then they have to explain to me what happened. I say, yeah, that's right. That's what happened. You use your own words. And I think many Swedish students that I meet, and especially those that are at very good schools, is that they are very afraid of doing something wrong. And for me, as we're sort of going back to failure again, for me that's not a bad thing. If you answer the question it was a wrong answer that I was looking for, it still is a good answer. We can sort of just move on from that answer and we sort of walk in the right direction, so they are back on the right track. But you want to sort of give them an experience so they can sort of understand, okay, I was thinking wrong in the first beginning, but now after some discussion, I'm sort of understanding much better. And I'm a bit afraid that we sort of select sometimes due to all the tests and exams and so on, we select for students that are very good on just spitting out facts, but they don't think. And that's what we don't need in the future. We need people that are good on innovations, being creative, and so on. So that's a discussion we have at the university, that are we actually selecting for the best PhD students?
Yeah, very interesting. So, yeah, I want to thank you, Anders, like very much about your like for your openness, for your open-mindedness, for your sharing of your experience and of your knowledge. Yeah, I hope we did something valuable today, and we shared something valuable with our teachers, and I hope they will become more motivated to teach their students, and I hope that we made the difference that matters today. Yeah.
I hope so too, and it was a great pleasure to join you. Once again, thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, it was great pleasure for me as well. Yeah, thank you, Anders. Thank you to all the listeners. We hope you will join our next speaker series. We have more interesting speakers to come, so you are always free to join. And thank you so much. Aygirim. Aygirim, söz sizde. Biz
Спасибо
bitirdik.
большое, Ерлан, спасибо большое, Андерс. Замечательная лекция. Все было замечательно. Мы видим здесь в чате слова благодарности. Я вижу, что аудитории очень понравилось. Уважаемые участники, сейчас в чат мы отправим форму обратной связи. Хотелось бы, чтобы вы поотвечали на вопросы, чтобы посмотреть, какова же была все-таки польза этой лекции. Спасибо большое нашему спикеру, спасибо, Ерлан. Мы вас задерживать не будем. Если нет вопросов, сейчас в чат я вам отправлю ссылочку. Вот, можете переходить. Если у вас нет вопросов, уважаемый Ерлан, Андерс, мы с вами прощаемся.
So yeah, thank you, Anders, one more time, and yeah, we are free to go.
Okay, thank you. See you soon.
See you soon.
Спасибо, всего доброго.
Bye.
До свидания. Уважаемые участники, я отправила в чате, если вы видите форму обратной связи, пожалуйста,